Welcome to the Stakeholder PLU video PowerPoint. We're going to cover in this short PowerPoint how to use the power, legitimacy, and urgency strategy to rank and prioritize stakeholders in order to respond to them in an appropriate manner that meets their needs and helps your organization move forward. So to review really quickly, a stakeholder is someone who is impacted or affected by an organization's actions, or who can impact or influence the outcome of a situation for that organization. If we look at the mapping organizational stakeholders figure from your reading, you can see that different stakeholders have different interests in relationship with a company. For example, the press is going to be driven by the identity and image of that organization, whereas governmental regulators are more concerned with the responsibility and credibility of that organization. Employees, the identity. So if we apply this, we can see that different stakeholders have different relationships with the organization in each situation. But how does that help you rank them? Let's start by looking at a real situation with a real organization. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill, BP from May 2010. So who are the stakeholders impacted? We've listed a few here. Start with the media up at the top. The media is a stakeholder who is impacted and who can impact the outcome of this situation for BP. And there's customers, there's shareholders, there's the U.S. government, there's the environment itself, there's BP's partners, there's employees. All of them have a different relationship to BP in this situation and can influence or be impacted by the outcome of this situation differently. We could add more stakeholders here. There are many. But this is a good start. How are we going to rank them, though? Who is the most important stakeholder in this situation? To do this, we'll look to PLU. PLU stands for power, legitimacy, and urgency. So if we're looking at how much power a stakeholder has on the situation, we're looking at how they're able to influence the outcome. Does the media have a lot of power? Yes, it's indirect power, but they can influence public perception and positively or negatively affect how the company comes out of the situation that they're in. Do shareholders have power and influence? Yes, it's a more direct influence. If we look then at legitimacy, this is the validity of the concern that the stakeholder has. Looking at, okay, so if I'm concerned about X, how much more important is that than some other stakeholders' concerns? And we'll look at this in a real example in a minute. And finally, there's urgency, which is the need for immediate action. Is this stakeholder's concern something that needs to be addressed now, or is it something that needs to be addressed down the road? So let's put this PLU strategy into action with our Deepwater Horizon BP oil spill stakeholders. So here we've got our stakeholders, and we're going to look at the power, legitimacy, and urgency of each stakeholder's concern in relationship to the company. So let's start with the media. Does the media have a lot of power and influence on how this situation will work out for BP? Pretty much. They could make it good or bad in terms of how BP interacts with the media and what the media's message is that they send out to the public. Good or bad PR. So yes, there's a high level of power with this media stakeholder. Looking at legitimacy, is the media's concern legitimate? For the most part, the press represents community and environmental concerns. Are those concerns legitimate? Absolutely. Are they urgent? Well, pretty much. So you would have a high level of legitimacy and urgency because every time, every second, every minute that more oil is pumped out into the Gulf, those concerns become more legitimate and the action becomes more urgent. So let's move on to the next stakeholder, customers. Here, do customers have a lot of power and influence? Well, maybe if everybody that bought gas from BP responded en masse, so maybe medium power. Is their concern legitimate? The concern that gas prices might go up or the company is not as green as it seemed to be? Well, those are legitimate concerns, but probably not terribly high, so we'll give them a low. Urgent? I'm not really sure how these concerns would be urgent. So no, they're not high or medium on the urgency. We can deal with customers down the road. Let's move on to look at the environment. Does the environment have much power and influence? Not a lot. Oil-covered shrimp can't come and attack BP CEOs. Low power. Do they have a lot of legitimacy? Absolutely. The communities that depend upon the Gulf for their livelihood and the wildlife that lives in the Gulf are in danger. That's a legitimate concern. Is it immediate danger? Absolutely. Like we said before, every minute that goes by, more oil was pumped into the Gulf. That's urgent. So we can see now, if we look at all of our stakeholders, that each of them has different levels of power, legitimacy, and urgency. If we then take the ones that have the highest level of power, legitimacy, and urgency, we're left with partners and media. So these would be our top 2 stakeholders in this situation. We would then go through and rank and prioritize the others based on these criteria as well. So that's how you use power, legitimacy, and urgency, PLU, to help rank and prioritize your stakeholders in any situation where you are responding to someone within or without your organization.